Let's go ahead and take care of the agenda item. It is BL 2023-1694, Roden and Syracuse approves an agreement between the Metro Nashville Police Department and Airbus Helicopters, Inc. for the lease of a MNPD helicopter to be used for the HAI Heli Expo 2023 show. Can I get a motion?
Move approve. Second.
Any discussion, questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? It passes. Thank you so much. That concludes our agenda as far as agenda items. I did invite Mr. Martini here from the ECC. There have been a number of things been reported in the media and through our emails or whatnot, and I just wanted to get an update on the improvements and the work being done there. To just give us an update. So I appreciate the handout. Everybody has this, and I guess you will be going through those. So
absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Appreciate the invite, Chair Syracuse and members. I'm a fan of visual aids, so that's what you have here. We're going to work through those one by one. Really, they're just one-pagers giving some additional insight into each of these projects. The first that you've probably seen some conversation about in the Tennessee and others is our tactical computer-aided dispatch solution. This tactical CAD is a web-based Amazon Web Services supported CAD solution that allows us to CAD what computer-aided dispatch is and does. It's a software solution our dispatchers use to put calls, all the information from a caller into a computer software solution that allows the call to be assigned to police officers, firefighters, medics, and tracked, right? It interfaces with a variety of other solutions, records management solutions used by the police officers, fire department, EMS for billing purposes on the back end, our fire station alerting, and a handful of other interfaces. There's a solution we use for move-ups to stage fire resources closer to certain calls if they get very busy. All of those are interfaced inside of the computer solution. Should we lose that solution, and we don't typically, there's a premise on-site solution and then a second disaster recovery solution housed separately. So we don't have a lot of downtime there, but should we lose that solution or access to our network, and our third level of redundancy is pen and paper. And pen and paper in our environment is not great, right? We're separated across either two floors at our prime site or two different locations across the county when we dual activate during storms, ice, weather, things like that. So this allows us to operate, avoid going pen and paper, and we can really do it from anywhere. We've had a conversation last week around, we took a lightning strike at our backup center, and we were running on a generator for a while. It was fine. We got 32 hours of fuel, but after about 8 hours, we started looking at each other saying, where are we going to go? What's the next plan? And we could have sent our dispatchers to Williamson County and sat up at their 8 call taker positions with our laptops and worked off a completely alternate CAD if we had needed to move to that position. So that's what that solution is. All of these that I'm listing out are funded through the 911 surcharge that we all pay on our phone bills that's collected at the state and distributed to the Davidson County Emergency Communications District. So that relationship there allows me to come visit y'all and wave, but I don't come asking for money much because really we're able to contain inside of that 911 surcharge revenue for our technology needs. The next item on the list is a regional private data network that we are modeling after a similar solution in Allegheny County in the 14-county region around Pittsburgh, basically in western Pennsylvania. That solution is connecting through private fiber paths various networks for emergency purposes. Following the Christmas bombing, we were not able to make or receive any non-emergency administrative type calls on our non-emergency lines. That included alarm calls. We had no way of receiving an alarm call if somebody was medical alarm, fire alarm, burglar alarm, hold-up alarm, whatever that was. Those come on 10-digit lines from the alarm monitoring centers that are hosted around the country. We couldn't take those calls. We couldn't receive those calls because AT&T couldn't take those calls inside of our county. Our neighboring counties could. Their 10-digit lines stayed up. Their 911 lines went down. We were reversed. Our 10 digits were lost and our 911 stayed up. So we had that conversation. How do we avoid this problem in the future? What happens if all of Davidson County is in a space where nobody can make a phone call? Well, the reality is we still have to be able to take one. So we've followed that plan that's in place in western Pennsylvania and leveraged existing fiber network that was put in place to support the radio system that we share with Williamson County. It's a very robust digital radio system that covers from Bowling Green, Kentucky down to south of Pulaski. Really, the responders can drive anywhere in that mix without changing their radio talk group because of the coverage of the system. So we used a portion of that system to pass phone calls, connect our phone systems, which we successfully tested February the 13th is when that was a week ago. I made a phone call on my phone using a 5-digit dial that rang a completely separate system, completely different provider in Williamson County without ever touching the carrier network. So we have the ability now to either route our existing phone numbers or publicize to the public a 10-digit number, an alternate number in the situation. Call this number. It's going to route to Williamson County and then travel across this private fiber path to our dispatchers where they're sitting, where they're working, so that if the network goes down but we're still able to take a phone call, we can still get that call into the center, which is important. I want to say important. It's critical, right? The public relies on us to be able to answer the call, which means we need to be able to take the call. So that's an early adopter solution. We are really, there's nothing else like it in Tennessee. I take that back. I lied. Knox County is exploring something similar, and as soon as they've got that up there, we are talking to each other, going, how do we continue to connect to counties and maybe meet each other in Cookeville-Crossville area and create a west-east or a middle-east solution for redundancy. There's very little cost. I don't even know if it was $1,000 for the resources to connect this. It's just putting the right people in the room in the right place to have the right conversations. The next item in your packet is our ability to locate callers in rural areas using the What 3 Words solution. This one I'd like to take a whole lot of credit for, but I really can't. It's a solution that's been in place for a while. This is just taking an answer that has been there from at a global level. I think it's a European company that has then skipped the pond and came to us, that divided the world into 10-foot by 10-foot squares. And it named each 10-foot by 10-foot square with 3 unique word identifiers. So when the conversation came up between police and parks, and so how do we find an emergency on our trail system or on the rivers or somewhere where there's not a dispatchable location? If you're not in front of a house or a building or somewhere that has a mailing address, how do we get help to that person? Looking around, Arizona State Park System use this What 3 Words solution inside of their marketing. They've encouraged at the start of all the hiking trails, they put this app on your phone, and when you're out and you're having an emergency and you need to call or text, you can advise these 3 words where you are, and the 911 system can find you. So we have a solution that we use inside of our center called Rapid SOS, but basically that solution, when you call, it doesn't require you to have an app on your phone. Helpful if you have it, but not required. If you call, your location is also correlated with that 3-word identifier that will help us figure out where you are. We have used this already to rescue a stranded boater on Percy Priest Lake, which is really important. He said he didn't know where he was, but we know where he was, right, with those 3 words, and could route to his location appropriately. So that's there. We'll continue to work with Parks and Police to promote this solution out to the public and make sure they're aware of it. They're looking at, Parks has defined signage to put those 3 words on certain areas in rural areas. It says, hey, this is where I'm at. It's kind of difficult if you're to put it on a park shelter. It's 10 foot by 10 foot square. So that one shelter could have 8, 9, 10, 12 different locations. When you start talking about a 10-foot by 10-foot square, each corner has a unique 3-word identifier. Your house, for example, if you throw it on the app and look around, your house is going to have, 25, 30 different 3-word identifiers for every 10-foot square. It's more accurate outside than inside. Once you get inside, which is true of any cell location technology, buildings kind of get close but not exactly spot on. But because we're using this in rural or parks areas, it's a perfect solution. So we're excited about that, and that's rolling out. I understand there's a story on News 5 tomorrow about the What 3 Words solution, so that'll be fun. My 4th item to share with you is the Prepared Live text and video. Prepared Live is a solution that we've just rolled out really in the last 45 days. I've got one of my dispatchers here with me, Austin. Hold me accountable, man. Make sure I don't lie. It's been recent. Rolled it out in the last 45 days. This solution is free to us, so that's exciting. First off, at least initially, there's going to be a cost component likely for how we interface to share some of the data out with the field responders. But we can receive at our request a text message or a live video from callers depending on the situation. So if our dispatcher determines a set of criteria are met and we say, based on what you're calling about, it would be helpful if I could see a picture of this. The scenarios we're thinking of right off are missing person, missing child, right? The picture you took of your child 2 days ago is going to be a whole lot more relevant than maybe one that a school picture or something. And then especially if you're saying they just went missing, if you can send that picture to us and we can describe, at least right now, the clothing, the person, what this child looks like to responders while they're en route, they may pass them right on the way and say, oh, I think I just saw the kid that we're talking about. And that's much more helpful than they drive to you, they get a picture once, they make contact with you, and we start the process from there. We're reducing the time. They've already had lives saved with hands placement on CPR as they work on appropriate hands placement. That's a challenge, you know. How many of us have done CPR in actuality in our lives? And when you, right, in the moment, you're saying, where is it exactly? And they've found some moments where you've got two-person or bystander CPR. That video where it says, hey, I'm going to send you a link. Send me a video of where their hands are right now. You're too low, you're too high. Make sure it's right here. And they've had some CPR saves around the country with that. Chattanooga is a great story. Recently was a woman who was being held against her will in a domestic type situation, and she had called or texted 911 discreetly, and they sent her a link, and she was able to hold the phone and broadcast, and the officers could see an entire layout of where she was, and the person inside the house, he had a knife, he was between her and the door, and they knew exactly what they were getting into based on the information the dispatcher could provide, saying, when you go through the door, he's on the left, there's a couch on the right, all that stuff. So this solution is also out there. We're not publicizing it nearly as much as some of the others because it's not something the public can choose to do, to say, hey, we're sending you a video. It's something that through the process for certain types of calls, we say this call would be beneficial if we could have a picture or a video to help supplement the response. We're doing so. So our next steps is coordinating with Prepared to be able to share those solutions out to the responders so they see whatever that is, right? It would be helpful for those officers responding to see footage from inside the house they're considering, entering, or the missing child as they're driving, those types of solutions. The last item in your packet is a deliverable from the last time we met, which was August of last year, and a flyer explaining just when to call 911. Sometimes we ramp and harp and really publicize not calling 911, and we've done it so much now, I think that we need to sort of reverse course a little bit and remind people it's okay to call 911 in certain situations. That's not CPR, stroke, stabbing, shooting, right? If it's some of these other categories. So we've shared this one-page flyer on a variety of Metro Facebook pages, and it's available in a PDF format to share around with neighborhood associations or anybody that you feel like is relevant to see it, speak about it. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
That's great. Thank you so much. And not long ago, we had Rescue Rex here to talk
very
about
cool.
when to call. She even got to bang the gavel calling a meeting. So, yeah, we appreciate that. All right, open to questions?
Yeah, how do you find out your your three-word?
Sure, there's an app. If you put the What Three Words app on your phone, there's really nothing else to it. It pops up and it will just tell you right exactly where you are. And as you move around your house, it will change those 3 words with where you're at.
Gotcha.
And there's a screenshot in there of what that looks like to us, the dispatcher, when you call. I underlined in red those 3 words that come in where you are.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you for your work on putting this together. A lot of these issues came up during the special bombing after action review of how we could do better with maintaining service in the outage and making sure that people can call in emergencies, and this really addresses that. So just want to say thank you. Appreciate your work on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Am I recognized? Thank you. On the What Three Words, I would assume that as part of the process to communicate information that the Parks Department is probably connecting with like the Percy Priest Lake manager and how they can communicate that at the ranger level to visitors, or is that it?
I don't know how that part of the conversation is happening. I know that we're working with police and parks, and then whoever parks is partnering with. What I do know on our side is wherever they are, we can find them. Whenever they call, we're going to get the 3 words associated with their location. So however signage may go about that to various folks is
So it sounds like it can't hurt that I reach out to.
Yeah, sure, right? The more you talk about it, right, we know that it works, right? If they want to put up a sign, there's nothing they have to wait on to say, well, let's make sure that the DEC is ready for it.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Who sat and came up with all those three-word combinations?
Any other questions, comments, please?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for putting this together.
Sure.
What are the software upgrades that we're implementing and utilizing to make sure that our technology is keeping up with the development here in the city? And I'll give you 2 examples. One, the Waffle House shooting. And then 2, in my district, we had an incident a few weeks ago where the GPS, they weren't finding the actual address. Yeah, so what are we doing in those instances? Like, what are we doing to make sure that when we say we can locate people, we can locate people?
Sure. The first to the Waffle House shooting, there's a variety of things we've done since I've been here, which is now almost 3 years in a couple of weeks. When somebody calls, we've got what 3 words is one example. If they're not near a dispatchable location, we entered all the common places associated. When I say common, I mean like where a lot of people go, right? So Waffle House would be one of those. It's 24/7, 365. People go there to eat. You can Wendy's, Walmart's, those types of things. We enter those common places into our mapping solution to include the logo of the business, right? So if it's not there yet, which was the challenge in the Waffle House shooting before I got here, was the ortho layers just being the pictures taken of the county they fly those every 2 years, so they can be 18 months old or so, sometimes the latest. So
Are we updating those more frequently now?
Unfortunately, no. The
Okay.
ortho layers, that's about as often as you fly, right? It's because it takes about a year to stitch all those pictures together. It takes a year to fly the county, and you take them in the wintertime so you don't have leaves covering everything. But that's on our side. We know what it's going to be. So that square that was a dirt square Waffle House at the time and caused some confusion in that response, that dirt square still gets a Waffle House logo on our side that says the picture on the map shows a dirt square, but we know since then they built a Waffle House there. So it takes some of that debate and discussion out of the dispatcher's hands, saying, it looks like it's still under construction. Well, it was when they flew it, but not now, right? It sounds like, to the second part of your question, you're saying GIS? They couldn't find that? I got you. No, that's fair.
The police couldn't find them.
Yep, it sounds like a GIS
Yeah.
challenge on our side. Not every address gets entered into the database, and I will follow up with, if you have specifics on that incident.
I do.
All right, great. If you don't mind shooting me
I
an email.
drove over
on
there
that.
myself. I do. Yeah, I get it for you.
If you'll shoot those to me, I will follow up with their GIS guys and go, what happened in this situation? Because you're right. There's 3 things we care about, and it's location, location, location. That's it.
Thank you.
Well played. Well played. Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments, questions for Mr. Martini? Yep, sure. All right.
Just after.
Well, we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for
Thanks
the
so much.
invitation.
This
Appreciate
is
it.
great. Moving on to Tom real quick. I know that there was an opioid settlement committee meeting, and I thank Councilmember Evans for attending that. Other than the first meeting to decide how to put these dollars into action.
That was the second one.
Okay.
We have
Second.
another one coming up in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
There's a lot of folks around the table.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult problem. We've got, as you all know, the opioid settlement money is coming in now. So far, last time I checked, we had about $700-something thousand. It's supposed to be $1.3 million a year, which is not, for a problem of this magnitude, not a great amount of money, but it's a long-range thing. It's $1.3 million for 18 years. So you can think long-term, at least. There's just a lot of conversation about the best way to not just spend that money, but leverage all the other things that are going on in the community and make sure we spend it in smart places and don't duplicate efforts that are already underway somewhere else. It'll take a lot of conversation, but it really breaks down to a lot to how much of it do you dedicate to trying to put out the fire and how much of it do you dedicate to trying not having
The fire in the first place.
another generation come into this mess. So I think that if the right people are around the table, we'll keep going until we identify who's missing and make sure that they're represented.
Okay.
There's one other thing, part of that we talked about at the meeting. One of the things that we want to do is put some harm reduction things on the street, fentanyl test strips, for instance,
right.
and more Narcan. That was one of the first things that these folks said is we need to put more Narcan on the streets. Both of those have gotten legally easier in the last couple of years. We have ordered both fentanyl test strips and Narcan for this purpose from the state. And we'll try to get that on the street as expeditiously as we can.
Okay.
We've asked for 200,000 in the group. When I said that at the group, they said, why didn't you just get 200,000? We thought that was a fairly good number, but if we have to get more, we'll try to get more. We could buy some. I think we could find some money to buy some if we need to. They're not very expensive. 200,000 of them. So that's a real quick shot at that. The conversations continue, and the work will go on.
Do they expire? Oh, excuse me.
The fentanyl test strips don't, the Narcan does.
It does.
Yeah, they may expire, but not anywhere near as quickly as you need to, as long as you keep them dry, okay? We'll hand them out in a waterproof bag, I think is the idea. Ziploc bag.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you again, Councilmember Evans, for attending that Divide and Conquer. It's very, very helpful. Any other questions for Tom? Real briefly, Deputy Chief Gilder is here. Vice Chair Porterfield had asked for a report update on the SWAT incident that happened in Antioch. And so I asked Deputy Chief Gilder just to kind of give us an update there. And so I know Councilmember Porterfield's not here, but she can certainly watch the video after and then follow up with you if need be.
Yeah, no problem. So back in November of 2022, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, one of their task forces investigates drug-related overdose deaths. You know, they go after drug dealers who cause folks like Tom's talking about to overdose and die. They follow up on those investigations and try and obtain second-degree murder convictions on those individuals. The TBI had asked for assistance. They had been involved in a year-long investigation with federal agencies and other local partners. It's involved in multiple counties, and we were one component of that. Our SID, which is our Specialized Investigations Division that has our neighborhood shootings unit, and our SWAT team was asked to assist as well with the execution of multiple search warrants that same day. So they were going to multiple locations on the same day, all related to this one investigation. SWAT was involved because we don't just send SWAT to go execute a search warrant. We utilize what's called a threat matrix, where depending upon the nature of the individual that we're dealing with, their criminal history, their propensity for violence, the type of investigation, and other factors, if there's a certain score that's achieved, then SWAT has to serve those search warrants. It's just not safe for people that don't have the equipment, the safety equipment to do that. So this met that threshold. SWAT went to that location. They'd actually already been to some other locations, so I know one of the concerns that I saw in the correspondence was about the number of officers. Well, that was actually because there were multiple teams that had already executed search warrants that day that were going over to this location, just met there to execute this last one. That individual was not there at the time. I know there was concern about the noise. The noise that stemmed from that incident was the SWAT team utilizing a distraction device, which is loud. That's the purpose of it. Basically what it does is when they go in, if there's somebody dangerous in there waiting to ambush them, it disorients that individual. It was deployed inside the apartment complex, inside the apartment unit rather, so it was not outside where, you know, other individuals could be harmed by that device. But that was probably heard throughout the neighbors on the scene, so I'm sure that caused some concern by them, but that's what the loud noise was related to. So they executed the search warrant. The individual that they wanted was not there at that time. They did, however, recover, I believe it was about 30 grams of crack cocaine, which is a considerable amount, a firearm as well, and the TBI ended up taking out warrants on that individual. We found him, I can't remember how many days later it was. MMPD officers observed that individual, conducted a stop on him. He had another firearm with him at that time, more drugs with him, and we picked him up on those warrants, which were based out of Sumner County, and ended up taking him back to Sumner County to serve those warrants. It's kind of the gist of what occurred. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions, comments on? Yes.
I just want to say, thank you, just on behalf of the community. We know there's a lot of challenges as it relates to response times. Sometimes the reluctance of neighbors reporting certain activity in their neighborhoods. And just want to thank you guys for that. I think oftentimes we forget that we had a bomber that was harbored in a community for a very long time, and people knew that there was certain activity that centered around that household. They knew something was off. Couldn't necessarily say what it was, but they knew something was off. So thank you guys for actually doing your job. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Yep, go ahead.
Chair, if it so pleases you, if we could get a quick update about the Vanderbilt Humana situation.
Oh.
I know I've got a lot of emails and calls about it.
Enter Mr. James. Any update on Humana and Vandy?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. I hope I'm not spreading falsehood, but we were alerted to a breakthrough meeting last week between Vanderbilt and Humana that had occurred the week before. We were contacted by Humana representatives, advised that it appeared to be in good faith. The meeting adjourned with Humana, given sort of a checklist to come back with. I think they're coming back to Vanderbilt this week. So fingers crossed, because the best solution would be that those two parties come to a compromise. In the meantime, we have to assume the worst, and the HR department is working on an in-network at Metro cost option. In response to an email, I think from Councilmember Allen, our HR director, Shannon Hall, said, understanding council's need for some routine updates, promised a full update at no later than this committee's next meeting on March 7th. And in the meantime, wanted to remind council members that the concern about Vanderbilt is because they have such a strong internal reference process that a lot of people see only Vanderbilt physicians. And so if you're excluded from that, it can be devastating. There are some conditions and treatments that are still eligible for treatment, even if you're not being allowed for out-of-network treatment by Vanderbilt even after April 1st. So you may want to contact HR with specific information about what your condition or treatment is, and maybe be one of those exceptions. But in the meantime, we'll have a full update on or before March 7th to this committee.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Davidson, are you all keeping in touch with the Metro Retirees Association?
I think Shannon Hall has been in touch with them, and our main points of contact has been through their organizational representatives,
Sure.
FOP, Fire Department, SEIU.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Jameson? All right, seeing no further business before this committee, we are adjourned.
Hey! We have rules in here? No, I think they're
Councilmember
done.
Johnson, you credit for being here, for showing up.
I don't.
We only had 1 minute to you, actually.